This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Bracing for a wintry mess. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Webster. White Christmas, a day late, though as is often the case, what you'll get depends on where you are.
Some of the precipitation will be heavy. High snow accumulations will be across the eastern Twin Tiers up into south central New York. Amounts could reach 8 or 10 inches there. More in the way of an ice accretion will be an issue across central Pennsylvania into New York's southern tier.
That's meteorologist Kevin Williams. His full forecast coming later in this newscast. PennDOT already with several restrictions in place, including I-76, I-70, all of the western PA Turnpike extensions, parts of I-81, all of Route 33, and so on. You can check out 511pa.com for all the details there. Our other top story, defending Nigerian Christians on Christmas. The sound of a U.S. Navy missile being launched, one of several strikes aimed at ISIS bases in Nigeria.
They're killing the Christians and killing them in very large numbers.
As President Trump on Air Force One, he'd been threatening U.S. military intervention to counter Islamic extremist attacks and kidnappings aimed primarily at Nigerian Christians.
U.S. African Command said the strikes were carried out in coordination with Nigerian authorities, a point echoed by Nigeria's foreign ministry in a statement acknowledging the strikes.
That's CBS's Kamal Afzali. As many as 100,000 Nigerian Christians have been killed since 2009, along with thousands of churches and Christian schools burned. Even amid air raids, Christmas came to Kyiv. At least 1,000 war-weary Ukrainians gathered in central Kyiv on Christmas Day to celebrate the birth of Christ, and that amid the never-ending threat of Russian attack. This woman spoke to Reuters through a translator.
I think that restoring our traditions is also one of the options for fighting the occupier, because he wants to trample our traditions. Moreover, Putin refused to take a pause during Christmas, which means he terrorizes us during Christmas as well.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and President Trump set to meet in Florida on Sunday to discuss efforts to end the nearly 4-year-long Russian invasion. Ukraine also on the mind of Pope Leo during his first Christmas Mass.
And may the parties involved, with the support and commitment of the international community, find the courage to engage in sincere, direct and respectful dialogue.
The U.S.-born pontiff also called out the suffering of people in Gaza and Yemen and those fleeing poverty and violence around the globe. The Israeli Defense Forces say they've killed an Iranian military commander who was involved in planning attacks on Israel from Syria and Lebanon. NBC's Matt Bradley.
The IDF said that they killed Mahmoud Marshad al-Jawhari. They said that he is a member of the Iranian Quds Force. This is the organization within Iran's security establishment that is responsible for cultivating and funding and supporting all of Iran's proxies throughout the region.
That includes Hezbollah and Hamas on the Gaza Strip. Now back to weather, which is making news from coast to coast today. The system bringing us a wintry mix will dump a lot of snow along the east coast as well.
It is quite possible that this will turn out to be one of the biggest snowfalls for some of the I-95 cities, especially Philadelphia, on up towards Newark, as well as New York City, Bridgeport, over towards Providence and Boston over the last 3 or 4 years.
That's CBS meteorologist Craig Allen. And on the west coast, thousands in Northern California spent part of their Christmas without power due to high winds and flooding.
I stayed up till about 1 or 2 in the morning because I had to plug in my fridge. I had to get everything going because I had to cook Christmas breakfast, and I did not want to lose that food.
We couldn't make our frittatas, but so we opened presents first, and then we ate breakfast after.
Governor Gavin Newsom's declared a state of emergency in several counties, including Los Angeles, after the region saw heavy rainfall on Christmas Day. Flash flood warnings posted up and down the coast. The rain and wind are expected to begin abating today. Staying out west, a blast from the past at the Oakland-San Francisco airport, which is debuting a guest pass system that will allow friends and family to go greet arriving travelers right at their gate. The big reason, money.
A lot of our vendors here at our retail are local small businesses. who actually work with our concessionaires to bring their goods into the airport. So they would directly benefit from having a little bit more foot traffic.
To get those guest passes, you have to apply online ahead of time and get TSA approval, then go through TSA screening as well. President Trump wants major health insurers to bring down their costs soon, or else.
I want to meet with them and I want to say, I want you to cut your rates way down, way down. And maybe if they do that, we'll be able to not cut them out. We'll be able to continue to deal with them.
Trump plans to meet with industry execs as soon as next week, hoping to keep a lid on healthcare costs ahead of premium strikes that are looming for many Americans, especially those using the so-called Obamacare system. Well, back to Christmas. King Charles calling for unity in his Christmas speech, saying it can be accomplished through the, quote, great diversity of our communities.
We can find the strength to ensure that right triumphs over wrong. It seems to me that we need to cherish the values of compassion and reconciliation, resilience in the face of adversity, peace through forgiveness, simply getting to know our neighbors.
The British royal broke from tradition. He delivered the annual holiday message not from Buckingham Palace, but from Westminster Abbey. In New York, the faithful flocked to St. Patrick's Cathedral, New York City, to hear Christmas Mass one final time from that city's retiring Archbishop. Cardinal Timothy Dolan said Mass and talked about a recent conversation he had with a prison inmate.
He said, so maybe my prayer is that this Jesus, who you say came to save us, can be reborn in my heart and soul this Christmas. Folks, that to me ought to be in a Christmas card.
Dolan is set to retire in February. And while it isn't celebrated here in the U.S., maybe you noticed on your calendar that today is Boxing Day.
Is this about Boxing Day?
Yes, and it has nothing to do with gloves or a punching bag.
Lefts and rights and bobbing and weaving.
Boxing Day originated as a way for the wealthy to give gifts, money, and Christmas leftovers to the servants and the poor who worked on Christmas Day.
Your bonus.
My bonus.
It's observed in the UK, Canada, and Australia, and Boxing Day has morphed into more of a big shopping day. Some churches donate the collected money in alms boxes, and on the day off for those in other countries, Boxing Day may involve visiting relatives and friends. Jennifer Kuiper, CBS News.
Put up your dukes, or I guess put down your dukes. Still to come here on the Noon Report, influenza making the rounds in the Empire State, a Kratom crackdown, and a look at how Christmas brought out the best in us around the listening area.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams, tracking snow, sleet, and freezing rain. We'll have the latest forecast coming down in about 10 minutes.
All righty, thank you, Kevin. Now checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. Of course, weather is one of those big stories. A mixed bag of wintry weather could pose power and travel problems in parts of the area beginning this afternoon. Most of New York and Pennsylvania under a winter weather advisory or winter storm warning. Some western counties also under an ice storm warning. WBNG meteorologist Connor Thompson in Binghamton.
Windstorm warnings in effect for Broome, Cortland, Chenango, Otsego, Delaware counties going to effect at 1 o'clock, expiring at noon tomorrow. Heavy snowfall certainly is possible. The evening commute, regardless of where you're located, will be greatly impacted.
Now, our Kevin Williams is following this complex systems approach. His forecast for your area coming up at the end of this newscast. Well, it's snow season. It's also cold and flu season. Flu cases surging across New York State.
This year, it looks like it's going to be one of the most severe flu seasons that we've seen in a while.
That's Oishei Children's Hospital President, Dr. Stephen Turkovich.
Last week, we had almost 380 positive children for the flu, which is the highest weekly total that we've seen in at least the last 4 years, if not longer. And unfortunately, it continues to increase week over week.
The surge is putting pressure on emergency departments in Buffalo. Turkovich says get ready for some longer wait times.
The emergency room is certainly very busy. In general, on average, we see about 130 kids per day. We're now up to about 175 kids per day. So the wait times are a little bit longer, unfortunately, but we can manage the capacity.
New York State's one of the hardest hit states in the country this flu season, especially for flu type A. That's the more severe form of the illness. Warning signs include difficulty breathing, extreme fatigue, dehydration, or symptoms that improve then suddenly worsen, which could indicate a secondary infection. New York's controversial green light law gets backing from a federal judge. Family Life's Sarah Harnish has that.
The 2019 law has been criticized by the Trump administration because it prevents federal immigration enforcement from being able to access information the State Department of Motor Vehicles office has on immigrants without legal status. The law also allows the DMV to issue standard driver's licenses to individuals without social security numbers, regardless of their citizenship in the United States. But earlier this week, U.S. District Judge Ann Nardacci ruled the DOJ failed to plausibly allege the law discriminates against the work of the federal government, dismissing the lawsuit. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
Thank you, Sarah. Governor Hochul signing 2 bills into law this week regulating Kratom sales.
And they deserve to have clear warnings about the psychiatric, cardiovascular, gastrointestinal, and respiratory risks associated with it.
The law is making it illegal to sell Kratom to anyone under the age of 21 and require clear labeling about the dangerous effects of the supplement. Mom Carrie Scribner was at the press conference. She lost her 27-year-old son, Nick, to Kratom intoxication.
He was hooked, didn't even know why, couldn't even put his finger on it because he was taking something that was an herbal extract and a health supplement.
She says the death of her son pushed her to demand change.
I would go to bed every night and think, is there another mother that will wake up to her son's death? And I couldn't let that happen.
New York State Health Commissioner says naloxone, which is used for fentanyl overdoses, is also very effective at stopping kratom toxicity. Kratom is marketed as an all-natural health supplement, but has been linked to 60 deaths in 2024, according to the CDC. Well, high and dry in some Syracuse suburbs. The Onondaga County Water Authority says repair work on a broken water main could take longer than planned. Executive Director Jeff Brown says people and businesses are pitching in to get through it by conserving water.
Northeast Medical Center, obviously a huge facility, a lot going on there. They have actually gotten down to about 50% of the water use that they typically would have, still continuing to keep all of the services. That's the type of thing that we're hearing that's really, really impressive, and we are really grateful.
The fix might not be completed until well into January. It means residents living in places like DeWitt, Manlius, Pompey, Sullivan, Lenox, and Lincoln will need to conserve water until further notice. Construction work on the pipe is expected to begin on Monday. Is a Western New York community ready to go nuclear? As the state continues to explore adding to its arsenal of nuclear power plants to meet ever-growing demand, some Chautauqua County officials have expressed interest in housing a next-gen reactor at the former NRG power plant in Dunkirk. The idea has some support among state lawmakers as well, including Republican Senator George Borrello, who tells WGRZ.
With the support of myself, Assemblyman Andrew Molitor, the county executive, county government, and the city of Dunkirk as well. This is really a bipartisan effort to say that we should be considered. We have an ideal location in Dunkirk, but this is far from a foregone conclusion.
Borrello says he thinks more study is needed of those small modular reactors the state's considering, and adds that if it were up to him, the old NRG plant would be better as a natural gas power facility. 3 people dead, 3 others injured after a crash in Center County, Pennsylvania on Christmas Day. State police say a Pontiac with 5 people inside collided with another vehicle on North Eagle Road in the afternoon. The driver of the Pontiac and 2 passengers died. The other 2 passengers and the other driver taken to the hospital. That crash still under investigation. And a Christmas Day fire displaced 13 people in Carbon County, PA. No injuries reported in the Nesquehoning blaze, which Assistant Fire Chief James Meshling tells WNEP was also tough on the firefighters.
With it being all volunteer firefighters around here, it makes it a little bit tough with everybody wanting to be able to spend time with their family. So we made it work with what we had. Staffing is always an issue for volunteers in Pennsylvania. That's why we ended up going to 3 alarms so that we can make sure we had the necessary manpower available to be able to fight this fire safely.
The Red Cross is assisting those impacted families. An investigation also continues into the deadly nursing home explosion in Bucks County, Pennsylvania earlier this week. Officials say the blast happened while PICO crews were responding to a gas odor at the Bristol Health and Rehab Center on Tuesday. A patient and staff member were killed, 20 other people injured. The investigation now being handled by the National Transportation Safety Board. Electric vehicle drivers are getting more places to plug in along the PA Turnpike. We get that story from Family Life's Brian Query.
A federally funded electric vehicle charging station has opened at the Blue Mountain Service Plaza in Cumberland County at exit 202 westbound on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. State officials say it's the first of several stations being built with National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure funding. Another charging station is set to open next week at the New Stanton Service Plaza. The project is part of the Turnpike's partnership with Apple Green Electric, with plans to install EV charging at all 17 service plazas, about 80 stations total by the end of 2027. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. The after Christmas sales and returns will have to wait at one Pennsylvania shopping center. The Wyoming Valley Mall in Luzerne County expected to be closed through today due to a power outage that happened on Tuesday night. A high voltage specialist expected to be on scene today to get to the bottom of the problem. The earliest Wyoming Valley Mall is expected to reopen is tomorrow. Finally, Christmas is the season for giving, of course, and many gave of their time and treasure over the past couple of days to help others. About 300 volunteers with the Niagara Gospel Mission delivered some 1,800 meals around Niagara County, New York on Christmas Day. Executive Director John Cooper tells WIVB.
It's important to let the people in this community know that someone cares for them, someone loves them, someone wants to actually not just help them get the services they need, but actually give them that warm meal, greet them with a smile when they drive to their home, pray with them.
Meantime, Buffalo's Dream Center hosted a free Christmas Eve lasagna dinner for more than 300 people without homes. The center's Jessica Johns.
It's important to us because it's important to them, and it's great to get them in a safe environment, a warm environment, and just serve them.
There were similar examples of Christmas charity throughout the listing area. This volunteer at Pennsylvania's Erie City Mission tells Erie News Now he was there to provide not just food, but also companionship.
I haven't seen my family for the last 10 years, and I know how it feels to be alone in this world. It's just a way to let them know that they're not alone and they can be a part of a family just like myself.
The Erie City Mission served hundreds of Christmas Eve meals to area families. Well, up next on our menu, a heaping helping of sports. A Christmas Day triple header was the NFL's gift to football fans if they could unwrap it. Two of those games were Netflix only, beginning with Dallas holding off a late surge by injury-ravaged Washington. The Cowboys racking up a 30-23 road win as they try to close out their season next week with a .500 record. Next up, Minnesota crushing the visiting Lions' slim playoff hopes with a 23-10 win, despite the Vikings finishing the game with just 3 net passing yards from rookie quarterback Max Brosmer, who was sacked 6 times, but still got the W. Lions QB Jared Goff struggled too, 5 turnovers and 5 sacks by the Vikes. In the Amazon Prime nightcap, how the mighty have fallen. Kansas City, missing Patrick Mahomes and a bunch of other starters, fell to 6-10 on the season, dropping a 20-13 decision to Denver. The road win giving the Broncos a 13-3 record, still on the hunt for the AFC's top seed and first-round bye. That might have been future Hall of Famer Travis Kelce's final game at Arrowhead Stadium.
Yeah, it's a Christmas game, baby. It's a whole lot of emotion, man. Have everybody in the world watching you.
A pair of Saturday games up next. Houston at the Chargers, and Baltimore trying to keep its postseason hopes alive as they visit Green Bay, though quarterback Lamar Jackson still doubtful with a back injury. On Sunday, Steelers travel to Cleveland. TJ Watt practicing again as he recovers from that punctured lung. The Bills host the Eagles. Josh Allen expected to play despite a foot injury. New England's at the Jets, and the Giants try their luck in Las Vegas. 5 games on tap in the NBA yesterday. Nikola Jokic unstoppable in the Nuggets' 142-138 overtime win over the T-Wolves. The big man fired off a 56-point triple-double to lead the way. Not all good news for Denver, though. They'll be without one of their key off-season acquisitions for the foreseeable future. ESPN reporting that Denver forward Cameron Johnson is expected to miss some time after being diagnosed with a bone bruise in his right knee. Other winners on the pro hardwood, the Knicks, Spurs, Rockets, and Warriors. Steph Curry notched his 26,000th career point in the Warriors' win over the Mavs. Though the Mavs lost star Anthony Davis to a groin injury in the first half, he'll be sidelined for a while. And that's a look at sports. All right, still to come here on the Noon Report on this day after Christmas, exploring the Christian backstory of St. Nicholas.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. During the memorial service for Charlie Kirk, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said, quote, Charlie started a political movement, but unleashed a spiritual revival. Well, many people have, in fact, been using that word revival to describe what's happened, especially among young people, since the September 10th assassination of the founder of Turning Point USA. According to a Fox News article published just a few weeks after his death, pastors and religious leaders across the United States, including Arizona, where Kirk was based, have reported a 15 to 30% increase in church attendance. And many of the new attendees referred to Kirk's death as a kind of wake-up call about their mortality and faith. J.P. DeGance, the founder and president of Communio, a ministry that helps churches strengthen marriages, told the Christian Post this, quote, "There's been a lot of anecdotal feedback from churches in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, and Douglas County, Colorado, reporting that they've seen an increase in attendance over the last 2 Sundays. There's one church in Michigan that said a number of young adults who were raised in the church but hadn't been there and people who hadn't seen them for years showed back up. Also, Bible sales in the month of September were about 36% higher than the previous year, according to Nielsen Bookscan. And of course, every single aspect of the Turning Point organization has seen an incredible surge of interest in the wake of Kirk's death. That includes TPUSA Faith, a group that helps churches put their faith into action. But the most substantial evidence of whether or not we're in a time of Christian revival still remains to be seen. Specifically, it remains to be seen whether what many are calling the Kirk effect will prove to be only short-term, kind of like the wave of patriotism that followed 9/11. If there is a significant work of the Lord that's brewing in our country, well, there are 2 surefire ways to miss it. The first is to presume that God could never work in the way that he is working. Many have presumed as much about Christians who are deemed to be too political, especially someone with the kind of public profile that Charlie Kirk had in life, and even more in his death. The second way to miss God's working in this moment is to spend all of our time and energy saying some version of "I told you so," rather than wait on the Lord with thankfulness and praise for working in our midst. Revivals are fed by a growing awareness, most importantly of the glory of God, and also of the seriousness of sin. All the attempts then to seize a platform or to claim credit or to manufacture some internal change will never achieve the eternal ends that religious revival will. Now, we can certainly rejoice that there seems to be a growing awareness of spiritual things, a growing rejection of some of the worst ideas that have poisoned our culture, and a clear growing groundswell of courage among God's people. Our choice now is whether we will join this work, faithful to what is true and what is good. The Colson Center is committed to helping Christians live with this kind of faithfulness and courage in this cultural moment. The daily Breakpoint commentaries provide clarity amidst the confusion and confidence in the truth. The Colson Fellows program equips Christians to serve their churches, their families, and their Christian schools. And Truth Rising is challenging Christians across America and around the world to engage this civilizational moment with hope. Would you consider joining us in this mission to advance a Christian worldview with a generous year-end gift? Thanks to a $500,000 match, every single gift before the end of the year will have double the impact. You can give by visiting colsoncenter.org/December. That's colsoncenter.org/December. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Well, some tricky weather this afternoon and tonight. Here's Kevin Williams.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. A wintry spell as we head through the next 12 to 18 hours. For this afternoon, cloudy with snow, sleet, and freezing rain arriving, continuing into tonight. Some of the precipitation will be heavy. The highest snow accumulations will be across the eastern Twin Tiers up into south central New York. Amounts could reach 8 or 10 inches there. More in the way of an ice accretion will be an issue across central Pennsylvania into New York's southern tier. High temperatures this afternoon, 20s. Temperatures mainly holding in the 20s tonight.
All right, thank you, Kevin. You're listening to the Noon Report on Family Life.
Welcome. It is Christmas week. I'm news anchor Sarah Harnish, and today we have a special feature on the origin of St. Nicholas and his Christian roots. With me today, Voice of the Martyrs Vice President Todd Nettleton. Voice of the Martyrs tracks people of faith around the world who make tremendous sacrifices to stand for Jesus Christ. And apparently, Todd, that list includes Santa Claus.
Most people don't know that the person who we think of as Santa Claus was actually a persecuted Christian.
Which is right up your alley. That's kind of what you do at Voice of the Martyrs. And you guys issued a press release that I love. It said, the historical St. Nicholas, often linked to the origins of today's Santa Claus, was reportedly imprisoned during Roman persecution for refusing to deny Christ. I've never even heard that story before. So can you tell the story of Santa?
Yeah, so the Nicholas that we know of as St. Nicholas or Santa Claus was born into a fairly wealthy family. His parents died when he was quite young, and he decided to take the wealth that had been left to him and use it for good things. And so in one case, the legend is that he gave it to a father whose daughters were about to be turned out into the streets. They did not have a dowry to get husbands, and so they were about to be forced into the streets. And Nicholas, late at night, delivered some money to this father, and his daughters then were able to get married. They were saved from that life, and so that's just one of the stories. But the idea that he gave gifts, which now we think of, Santa Claus comes down the chimney bringing gifts, and that's part of that story. The part of the story that we don't often tell is how in that time during the Roman rule, Nicholas of Myra is a city in modern-day Turkey. Nicholas and other Christians were ordered to pledge their loyalty, pledge their love, basically to worship the Roman emperor. And they said, no, we cannot do that. We are followers of Christ. Christ gets our first loyalty. He gets our worship. And for that, Nicholas and other Christians were thrown into prison. So he was a persecuted Christian, as well as the sort of foundation of the person that we call Santa Claus.
It's almost like a Daniel in the Lion's Den story again, but with a different figure and taking place in the Roman Empire.
It is very similar, and that kind of persecution from the Roman emperor, Diocletian said, you are going to worship me. And it's interesting, as the Christians there stood forth, and this was in Turkey. We know of other Christians in North Africa who also stood firm on their faith. They refused to bow to the Roman emperor, and there was a lot of suffering during that period of time.
Are there any other similarities between the Santa story and this figure from Roman history?
Just the idea of giving gifts. There are other stories of him giving away money or giving away parts of his fortune to help the less fortunate. That Santa Nicholas, the gift giver, really is kind of the foundation. And, originally it was St. Nicholas Day. If you go to Germany, if you go to Switzerland, the Netherlands, they still celebrate St. Nicholas Day, which is December the 6th. So right in this Christmas season. And that is the day that Nicholas died, December the 6th in AD 343. So he has been celebrated. His life has been celebrated since then. And some of those stories, like I say, they grew into legends, and that grew into our understanding of Santa Claus.
What kind of persecution would St. Nick have experienced during the Roman Empire if he did not follow these rules?
Well, some of the Roman persecutions were incredibly torturous and incredibly violent. I mean, we know it was the Romans who nailed Jesus to a cross. That was one form of execution during this period of time. The Romans also were famous for the gladiators and the lions and the Colosseum. They also, one of the Roman emperors actually turned the Christians into human candles. I don't know exactly how that worked, but somehow he would dip them in wax and then light them on fire, and literally they were human candles in his garden. And so the amount of suffering, the level of violence, I think for us, most of us, is just, it's almost beyond comprehension.
It's pretty crazy that we have records and actually know the day that St. Nick died, because I think most of us just think about it as a fairy tale or something that somebody created, but to actually be able to go back and look at historical records gives a brand new depth and meaning to the story of St. Nick, and it kind of takes off that materialistic holiday feel when you put it through the lens of a martyr and his faith.
Yeah, it does definitely change the direction of the Christmas season. If you think about St. Nick not just as sort of a jolly fat old man, but to somebody who stood for Christ, somebody who stood for truth. He stood for biblical truth. As the Bishop of Myra, he stood up against heresy in the church. And so to identify Christmas with that kind of spirit of, hey, I'm going to be loyal to Christ no matter what it costs me, that does change a little bit of our understanding. It certainly, I think, deepens our celebration of Christmas as we think about that.
Do you have any examples of what he did to stand firm in his faith? Was he evangelizing like the disciples, or anything in the records that points to how he stood firm?
There is a famous story, and I don't remember all of the details, but there was a gathering of church leaders, and one of the church leaders raised a heretical idea, and Nicholas reportedly either punched him or slapped him in the face in order to silence him and silence this heresy. And so, he was very demonstrative and very direct about, no, I will not allow you to speak untruth in the church. I will not allow you to attach Christ's name to things that aren't biblical. And so, that's one of the stories from that era. And that's a different side of St. Nicholas than we obviously celebrate at Christmas as well.
Yeah, it brings new meaning to deck the halls, deck the people, right? Yeah, for sure. How can we as Christians live in the example of St. Nicholas during this Christmas season?
The thing we think about is gift giving, and certainly that is a part of Nicholas's heritage. It's a part of the legacy that he left. But I think also we want to think about his willingness to stand for Christ, even when it cost him. And hopefully that inspires us. Hopefully that reminds us that Christmas is more than gift giving. It's more than great food. It really has deep roots in our faith, in biblical Christianity. And so one of the ways that Voice of the Martyrs actually has a children's book. I've been reading it to my grandson the last few weeks. It is called Nicholas, God's Courageous Gift Giver, and it tells the story of the real St. Nicholas to kind of help even our children and grandchildren understand that this was more than a fat man in a red suit.
And punch a relative today if you need to, right?
You said that, I didn't.
Todd Nettleton, Vice President of Voice of the Martyrs. Always an honor, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing the true story of St. Nicholas with us as we try to navigate a holiday and keep our eyes focused on Jesus Christ and not on the gifts and the presents under the tree, but on what this entire season stands for, which is the birth of our Savior.
Amen.
Hey, a quick shout out. You can follow the work of Voice of the Martyrs on social media or at persecution.com.
All right, thank you, Sarah. You can hear that and all of the original news features that are aired during the Family Life Noon Report online anytime at Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, and at familylife.org. Just ahead, if plowing through computer spreadsheets sounds like a world-class pain, you're probably not cut out for this competition.
It's the Excel World Championship. Who's going to win? It's the Excel World Championship. Who's going in the spreadsheet bin?
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Low pressure eastbound from Chicago, promising a wintry spell as we head through the next 12 to 18 hours. Forecast details for this afternoon: cloudy with snow, sleet, and freezing rain arriving, continuing into tonight. Some of the precipitation will be heavy. The highest snow accumulations will be across the eastern Twin Tiers up into south central New York. Amounts could reach 8 or 10 inches there. More in the way of an ice accretion will be an issue across central Pennsylvania into New York's southern tier. High temperatures this afternoon, 20s. Temperatures mainly holding in the 20s tonight. Tomorrow, mainly cloudy. A little spot of freezing drizzle or flurry early. High temps, mid-20s to mid-30s. Sunday, cloudy. A wintry mix changing to rain with high temperatures anywhere from the mid-30s to the middle 40s.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. Finally at noon, a championship for those who truly excel at Excel.
It's time for the Microsoft Excel World Championship!
Yeah, believe it or not, there really is such a thing. 24 of the top spreadsheet geeks in the world faced off in Las Vegas this month for the Microsoft Excel World Championship Finals. First, they had to qualify through a series of online competitions, racing to solve complex spreadsheet challenges. But when the cells were settled and the formulas finished, no one could top Ireland's Diarmuid Early. Dubbed the LeBron James of Excel spreadsheets, Dim, as his fans call him, is now the world's #1 worksheet whiz, telling the CBC,
I have been a perennial letdown to my supporters up until now. I've usually gone in as either the sort of first or second seed and had a terrible track record when it came to the knockouts. So I'm glad to be able to say, hey guys, I did it this time. People just lost their minds.
A bright future for Dim, who walked off with a wrestling championship-style belt and $5,000. Guess he could do up a quick spreadsheet to figure out ways to spend it. And that's the world we live in for Friday, December 26th, 2025. As always, we thank you for listening. I'm Mark Webster, Family Life News.
You've been listening to The Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.